Welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. My name is Patrick, and thank you for joining us again. I'm glad to see you all here today. We're talking today about some new reusable sections that we've added. So we're going to actually be providing a package to you at the end of this webinar that will include these 4 techniques. And I've also got a bonus demo later after this. And today, this topic came up. We've been working really hard to get the latest version of FormsViewer 3.2 out over the summer, and we've had a lot of busy consulting projects as well. So we haven't done our webinar in a while, and we've been kind of changing the schedule. So we just kind of inserted this because it came up with a customer last week, as did the bonus demo. So this is stuff that's live, that's relevant. And next week, I'll talk about this at the end, but next week we'll do the Power Apps webinar on offline forms, and then the following week we'll do the webinar introducing the features in FormsViewer 3.2, which we hope to have out very soon. But today we're talking about how to add functionality to forms with minimal effort. So these are 4 techniques that we tend to add to a lot of forms. Technique number 1 is being able to log comment history. So you've got a form, you want to have somebody add data to it and have that data be logged to a separate list and have the form open and show that data again after it's been reopened. So comment history is something that almost every form is going to have, and I'm going to show you this in my demo. It's very useful. It allows you to use this technique and also archive the data to a list form or list where you can actually do auditing or whatever you want to do on it. The second technique is the file attachments. So a lot of times you'll be adding attachments to a form. Those attachments ought to be uploaded to a document library, and the benefit is that the form will open more quickly because the attachments tend to be large, or they can be. So if you have a large attachment, the form will take a few extra seconds to load. By replacing that attachment with a link and moving it to a document library, so the link points to the attachment in the library, you get a much better experience. In addition, the users can access that attachment outside of the form. We've done a bonus part of this demo today where we actually create a separate folder underneath that attachment library, and I'll show you that in a second. So it's actually organizing the attachments per form. The third technique is very common. You have admins that need to see approval sections. You only want to show the admin the sections if they're an admin, right? If they're a regular user, you don't want to show them the section. So we'll show a technique for this. There's actually a bug in SharePoint where you can't use the default profile services is admin property. It doesn't set it correctly. So we'll show you a technique using a list. I'll show that in a second here, in a minute or two. And then finally, to make all of this stuff easily configurable, so you can just kind of plop it into your new form, pick and choose what you want. We have this technique for dynamically updating data connections, and this is really cool. I know that some of you are already using this. I see Shane here in the audience. Shane uses this for all of his forms. This is a really cool technique. We've codified this, or we've kind of encapsulated it into this XML template part to provide easy configuration. So I can do all of this and add this to a new form literally in 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll see this next. That's the stuff we're talking about today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the demo now and actually add those sections to a new form, and then we'll demo it, we'll test it out, we'll review it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got an XSN, and this is a FormsViewer starter form that you can use, and I'm using this in the designer. We do have design support now in FormsViewer, but in order to make layout changes or add XML template parts, you'll still need InfoPath Designer for a few more months. Hopefully by this time next year or earlier, we'll have the ability for these section parts to work in the FormsViewer designer. So I'm still using InfoPath Designer, so it works just fine. To get this template, you can go to our InfoPath Dev site, our community site, and you can just download it here. I'm not going to include it in the, I might include it in the package, but you just go down here to Form 0 and there's a lot of samples, and you can just click on samples, and that I just download it from here. We updated this when we released 3.1 back in May. Okay, so this is the form I want to add my sections to. Now, when you're adding a custom control, and we'll include this in the package, you're going to start by going up to the controls area, and there's an option here for adding custom controls. And you can see I've already added it down below here. It's called FV controls. I'm going to add it again, and I've got an update from Mel Clemente, one of our forms designers, our top UI designer here at Qdabra, and she gave me a few minor updates to this after I tested it last night. So I'm going to browse and get my XTP file. So these XML template parts are something that are not often talked about. So they're not super known, but once you add them, there's a little logo here. We did talk about them a little bit in our training. The benefit of the XML template part is that it's very easy to add sections to your form. We'll see that in a second here. So I've added it to my controls. Now I need to actually put my cursor somewhere in my form and add it to the form. And the way I do that is I go back to the controls and I just select it here. And it's going to add it to the form. And when you add it to the form, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff appear. So this XML template part includes all of these sections that we talked about: change history, attachments. So there's the attachments with the upload button. There's the change history. And then at the bottom, we've got the admin section for showing user profile information. You could have your admin section for approval buttons. And then in the background, we're doing all the data connection fix-ups. And in between these sections, we're adding a lot of help text, so you can actually add this to your form. I'm going to go through this. It takes about 15 minutes. So we set up some initial expectations with the reader. We've got a little bit of a lexicon here. So in order to add an XML template part that leverages our QRoles commands, we have to have placeholders. And so temp command and temp results are the two main placeholders that we're using. And I'm going to go through the logic that was added and update that. So the benefit of the XML template part is threefold. Number one, you get an update to your view. And these sections here will hide after we open the form, or I'll delete them. Number two, you get the schema changed. You see here this FV controls over here. It added all this stuff to my main data source. And that includes the change history log. Number three, it also adds data connections to my form. And you can see here that it added these 3 data connections, actually these 5 data connections: change history, get profile information, the mapping for the submit to SharePoint list, the admins list, and the logic to control the rules. So the benefit of the XML template part is that it packages all of these things together to make your life really super easy. You just add it to your form, you do some minor config, and your form's up and ready to go. So I'm going to do that minor config now. So the first thing I need to do is I need to, I'm just going to follow the usage steps. So add the XCP to my info path custom controls. I did that. I injected my form with QRules already. If you have not injected your form with QRules, you'll want to go to Forms Viewer, and you'll want to go into the form that you want to add the custom controls to. So for example, let's say I wanted to choose the I got to find a form that does not have QRules. So you'd upload your form to Forms Viewer, and then you would go in here and you would add QRules. And the QRules is going to appear on the Design tab. So if I go into the form template and you click on Design, you'll see if the form doesn't have QRules, you'll see a button in here to inject it with QRules. And this form probably already has QRules. I'm sure it has it already installed. So we won't see that button to inject QRules, but you'll want to inject your form with QRules and then download it before you add the XTP. It doesn't really matter the order. You can actually add the XTP first, upload the form to Forms Viewer, and then download it. So this is the design screen, and if this didn't have QRules, you'd see an Inject QRules button over here on the right, but it does, so you're not going to see that. So once again, the third step, and this is in the PowerPoint presentation, but you're going to want to inject your form with QRules by going into that design button and then downloading the form once again, and then right-clicking it and going to design. Okay, so we assume we've already done that because this form has QRules in it. I know that because I can go into my fields over here and it will show me that QRules in the form. QRules is where we extend all the functionality of InfoPath to add the cool stuff that you're going to want. So there's my QRules. So I'm good to go, and the next step is going to be to add a rule to finish loading that sets this run finish loading rules field to go. So with QRules, all of the logic happens at the beginning on the finished loading field. So if I go to QRules and click finish loading, you can see that this stock forms your starter form already has logic to switch to mobile view if the form's opened. And I'll send you a link anonymously so you can open this form from your desktops during the demo, after I finish the demo, to test it. So we want to add a rule here, and this rule is going to be to initialize the new FE controls. And the way we do that is we have a logic in our secondary data source, which is going to set a field, and that field is going to be in that newly added secondary data source, which we're calling form XTP logic, and we're just going to set this run finish loading rules equal to go. And that's going to fire all those rules on that secondary data source, and specifically those rules, or we'll look at them in a second, but right now let's just stop with that. And then I also want to well, we're going to look at it right now actually. So we're going to go into the XTP form logic, and underneath actions, run finish logic, run finish load. So this is all the stuff that's happening during the after the load. So it's actually setting up the SharePoint site URL, it's setting up the attachments. So these URL stuff, that's the dynamic data connection stuff. So it's actually configuring those data connections and setting them up here on after load. So what I need to do is I need to go through this and I need to update where I have those placeholders to point to my new QRules. So under each of these rules, we've got the temp commands. I'm just going to go through here, and I have to do this a few times, actually about 10 times. And I'm just going to update these to point to the new command node. And that's because I have to do this because the XML template part doesn't have QRules built into it. So an XML template part can't have a QRules in it because QRules, I guess it could, but if you already got QRules in your form, you wouldn't want to have it happen twice. So you wouldn't want to add it twice. So we just assume that you don't add QRules as part of the XML template part. So I'm just going to go through these rules quickly and update them to update the placeholders so that I point to the right location. Temp command. So that's going to be another one. And you can just, when you open this, you can just hit the Q key and it'll automatically update it or find that data connection. And I guess this one probably doesn't need to be updated here. This one's fine. Set current user info though does. So this is the last rule, and we're going to do the same thing here. So just hit the Q command and then just double click. Hit the Q key and double click command, and then that's good. Okay, so that's the run. That's the second thing. So I just finished that second step, and actually I finished the third step as well. Just make sure I do this correctly. And as I'm doing this, I'm just going to delete the text because I don't have to do it again. So apply the same changes to the following actions. We've done this for these commands. So all of those rules, I think I just did. So if we click on, sorry here, I just went through that, just checking. Okay, so I just did that 1A. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set current user info field to get user profile role. Okay, so the set we also have some initialization, is that the right word? Underneath set current user info. So I'm going to go in here and underneath get user profile, I'm going to also add it here. So I have to do the same fix up here. Just repointing it at QRules. It's a little bit laborious, but it goes pretty quickly. And I don't need to do these here. I think we're good on those. We're getting the admins, querying the admins, setting the as admin. Okay, so I've just finished this one. And then I need to look at any other commands in here. So I'm going to look at this one here, the form ID. I'm going to update this one to point to QRules as well. And I need to, this one's fine, I believe. Oh, here we go, another one here. It'd be nice if we could do a find replace, but unfortunately you can't do that with rules. And I think I need to also do this one. And that's for sure. Okay, we're almost done. So any mention of temp command, points in temp command, field located in the data source. Okay, FE controls. So that's logic, QRules temp. Okay, that's good. And FE controls. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. We want to make sure that, let's go back to QRules finish loading and make sure that I don't have anything remaining there that needs to be updated. And we just got this, and we can move this, new rule down a little bit so that it's not in the way of my other rules. It doesn't really matter a whole lot. These other rules are just initializing the other controls in the starter form. So there's nothing else here that needs to be updated. This is just running that command. So, okay, so the same concept. So basically this is just telling us what we just did. Actually, I'm sorry, I need to be down here. That's what's confusing me. I've already done this, all the additional steps. Okay, so then once we've done all this, and let me just go through one more time and verify. Okay, so we've got command, attachments, change history URL, mapping current user. Okay, that looks all good. And then here we've got the get user profile, that's good. And change history log, set form ID, that's good. Oh, we gotta change this one here. And upload attachments. That looks good. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to now delete this usage step, and then it says here, follow additional modifications down below. Okay, so now for the file attachment modification, we need to create a library for the attachment. So what I've done already is I've already created that library in my site. So the site's going to have 3 assets: the attachments library, the change history list, and the admins list. So here you can see I've been doing some testing last night, and this is before we actually had the organization of underneath the subfolders, which you can see it was already uploading some attachments. So I'm going to, I've got that already set up. You don't need any columns here, just attachments library is fine. You also will need to create a change history list and a admins list. We'll get to that in a second. So once we've done that, it says here, name the document library and all that stuff. Okay, now if you have a different library you want to use, you can look at this step 2 here, and you can actually use it even if it's not named attachments. Just read that step and you can update it. And then we're going to click on the X. This is the delete button, and we just need to do a quick modification here to update this temp command to point to QRules like we did before. It's our placeholder, and then we need to do the same thing for the delete, I believe. Delete file. And here, there's 2 things I need to do. I'm actually updating that, and then I'm doing the step where I copy the value into the function wizard. This is kind of a clever technique to get it to resolve, even though it's not in the XTP. So we just sort of put it there as a placeholder. The value is actually a placeholder in that case as well. That's pretty cool. And then this optional step here, set folder name. Okay, so we can change the name of the set folder. Currently it's just using the date and the current user for the form name, and we'll just leave it like that for now. So I'm done with this step, so I'm just going to delete this whole section. Now, of course, you could leave these sections in. They're not going to show up when the form opens, so you could just leave them in, but for the purpose of this demo, I think I'm just going to delete it. And then down below here, we have to update for change history. So for change history, we want to create that list just like we did. Now, change history log, we're going to have a couple extra columns. So the change history log is going to have a user and comments. This shows 2 columns. And we need to update the form to point to that. So the submit button, we need to update the submit button rules. The set the form if new, so this needs to be updated to QRules command, and we're generating a unique ID for this, and then we need to make sure we set it to the result from the QRules command once we run the command. Okay, and then when we submit to the SharePoint list history, we also need to update our command to use the QRules submit to SharePoint list command. Okay. And that's it for that. Now there's one more thing that you can do is if you're using a different submit button, which we are, you can copy all of these rules. Let me just make sure that I did this correctly here. Upload attachments, yeah. So you can copy all these rules, and then you can go down to the submit button that you have in your form, and you can just paste them all here. Okay, that's pretty cool. So then we can delete this button up on top because we already have it down below there. Okay, so that's the comment history, and we'll see that in the demo in a second. And I'm just going to cinch this up a bit, and I'm going to delete these commands here. Now you can also add submit logic to the form if you don't have it already, and that's what this step 4 is talking about, but we're going to ignore that for this demo. We're just going to save the data out. Okay, and then finally the admin section. So you want to create an admin's list, and it has to have 1 column. That's the admin column, and I've already done this, so I'm going to skip that step. And then this is going to control the visibility of the admin sections. So if you have admin sections that you want to control visibility on, you'll need to copy that rule. If you have a different list that you're using for your admins, you can change the name that we default to. You'll need to make sure that the admin list, the admins list, has a person column. And anyway, there's just some more text in here that you can look at. We're going to ignore that for now. The admin section here that we're using is this one right here. And if you look at it, it's got a hide show. If the admin is if the toggle admin is true, then it hides it. Otherwise, it shows it. And then this link up here is going to also hide or show based on whether the is admin is true. So for the first, so we're pretty much done, and I think that now what we're going to do is we're going to upload, we're going to save our form. We'll save it out as take number 3. I did this demo twice already, so we'll save this out as take number 3. And now I'm going to go to my Forms Viewer upload page, and I'm going to add a new template, which is that Forms Viewer starter template with the new controls added. I just go in here and click on it, and there it is. And I'll just name this a little bit better. Whatever, make sure it's in my demos folder. Okay, so I'm uploading the form. So, okay, now here's the form, and I'm going to ask you guys to fill it out as well. I'll copy this link and put it in the chat window. Now, this is not going to save the form, but it should be a good demo. So while I'm doing the demo, I'll give it to you as well to put in the chat window. For those of you who want to follow along, there's the anonymous link. So let's take a look at the form. Let's see what it does. So when it opens up initially, it's going to do all that fix up, the data connections. This is the first time it's opening, so it has to cache the form. The first open is going to be a few seconds longer than normal. And looks like I'm getting a bug. so I obviously screwed something up. So let's take a look at that. So the admins, so I'm on the correct site and I've got the correct thing. I must have done something wrong with one of the rules. So let's take a look at this logic on load. I didn't have this issues before when I was doing it myself. Obviously, you never would you? So if we look at the XTP here, XML template part logic, underneath actions, we're fixing set current user info. So we're doing this logic here. So I'm just wondering if I'm missing something here. Yeah, there it is. So this temp result should be result. So that's the problem I have. Okay, that was easy. Okay, so now your link should work after, but I have to save this again first. So just give me 1 second while I do that. Just upload it again. And hopefully this next time will be the winner. We don't want any errors on open because it tells us that something's not getting fixed up correctly. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now I'll type in, this is the default fields for this form. And we have the sign control here. This is for people on their mobile. They can use that to assign something. This is a demo we did quite a while ago. We also have support for attaching pictures from photos, from camera. Okay, so I'm not sure why this got added. I must have done something crazy, but we're going to add an attachment. And so obviously we can add, we'll just add an attachment of my cats here. And we've got 2 attachments. We're going to add 2 pictures, or 2 attachments, because I want to show you the delete functionality. So we'll find another picture of my cats. If I have it here. Picture is... Oh, it doesn't really matter. Anything will work. Okay, and so I can upload those images, and it's going to upload those to the attachments library and replace them with links. And what that means is that I should be able to click on the links after I've uploaded them. Now you can also include that upload functionality on your submit button. So this is the image that's is now in the attachments library. I don't know if you can see that, but there's the attachments library. So the image was actually uploaded. You can also replace the links here with HTML images. Even though it's a link, it'll show up in the form. If we delete it, it should automatically delete the image. Let's go to the library and make sure that it's deleted. My cache is still working, so that's good. And you can see that in the library now, we have this new folder, and it doesn't have the cat picture in there anymore. The first one was probably, I don't know, this must be an issue here with, I'm not sure what's going on there, but this doesn't have anything in it, so this must be a bug in the XTP that I need to look at. But you can see that folder doesn't have the cat picture in there anymore. And if I go back to the form and delete the other one, it's going to delete, it should delete, let's see, where are we, right here. If we go in there again, it should be gone, so there's nothing there now. So that's the upload attachments functionality. For the comments, we can add the comments by clicking submit, and that's going to add the comments. I can show the comment history now. You can see I've just got the one item. Hello Kitty. If I add another comment, It's going to submit it to the list, and then I can query the new information. So that's the change history section. So that's working really well. Now finally, the admin section. So obviously I'm not seeing any admin link here, right? But if I go into the admin list and add myself, and I need the pop-up here, new. And now if I reopen the form, you'll see that I should have an admin link in the form now. And there it is, right there. Show admin controls, and that's going to show the user information. Like I said, you can have anything in this section. We just put the user profile information in there, and you can see that even though I'm an admin on the site, this is site admin property is not working. So that's the quick demo. I've got one more demo to show you, but any questions on this one? That took me about 20 minutes to add. And once again, common history, file attachments, admin sections, and dynamically fixing up the data connections. I didn't have to change where the data connections point. If we go back in the form, you'll see that the data connections are still pointing at, like this one here, they're still pointing at like your SharePoint site. So this is a totally bogus data connection, but it's not, because we fixed it up on load. So that's the good news there, is that you don't have to fix this up at all. It's going to automatically base it on your site. And that's happening right here. We're actually running a command to get the SharePoint host URL from the link that opens FormsViewer. And then we're setting this SharePoint site equal to that. And then we update all of the other data connections based on that. So that's a really cool technique. Any questions for me on this? Looks like we have one question, maybe. Can this be done with Q rules but not FormsViewer? Great question, Kathy. Yes, it can. All of this stuff will work just fine with Q rules out of the box. It will not work with the list form because list forms can't have XTPs, nor can they have Q rules. Your FormsViewer list forms can have Q rules, but they can't have XTPs, right? Because there's no way to add it. So you'll have to, if you have a list form that you want to add these techniques to, you'll have to upgrade it to a full-fledged XSN first. And I can talk about that if you're interested. But, question from Alan. Data connection aspect is really useful, I think, to allow multi-use. Yes, and Shane would agree with you. Shane's on the call. It's a very popular technique. We use it with all of our forms because it saves so much time when you're moving from one site to another. Typically, you're moving from a test site to a production site. So none of those data connections have to be changed. So we have a large customer in Ontario that use this for all their forms. They generate power, and they've got like literally 10 forms, and when they move them from test to production, they don't change the data connections. Everything works just flawlessly. So it's great for testing. It's great for migration and deployment. Okay, so I've got a bonus. I've got a bonus demo here for you, and oops, there's a question. I've had a question about this 3 days ago. Oh my gosh, Alan, good timing on that. Okay, so let's take a look at a very complex date calculations. So here's a spreadsheet I got from one of our great customers, Misty, a few days ago. And this is just saying, look, the staff can take vacation, but they have to give a month's notice, and there's a 9 a.m. lockout on Tuesday. So let's look down here. So let's say it's this week. So I want to take vacation in October. I have to get my vacation request in before 9 a.m. on Tuesday, that's 9/11, or else I can't take vacation the week of 10/8, right? So let's take a look at this sample form that I did for Misty, and we'll see this in action here. I'm just going to open this up and preview it in the designer. This actually I'll preview it in, I'll just upload it to FormsViewer. So here's the form, and it's a good thing I opened it because I do want to show you how I did it. So let's just go back to our upload templates section here. We're going to go back to templates, and we're going to add a new demo for this date calculation one. And I'll just put it in demos. I don't think I have it there yet. So I'm just going to upload it there. And we're doing training 2 weeks from a couple days ago. And these are 2 new labs that we're going to be including in our training. And you know, obviously, love to have you there. So please do register for the training if you can make it. It is free. Okay, so here's the date diff, and I'll actually send you a link to this as well, so you can fill this out if you want on your device. This doesn't have the mobile stuff in it, so just bear that in mind. It's only really going to open up in the, well, there you see it. Okay, so let's say I want to start my vacation on 10/9, and I submit it. It's going to say, well, and this, we've got some debug information in here, but what it's going to say is, well, it's actually not working like I want it to. So 29 days, maybe I got a bug. Let me see if it works this way in the preview as well. So, you know, obviously I can't schedule a vacation if it's before 9 a.m. Tuesday and less than 28 days from yesterday. So it is less than 28 days from yesterday. And it looks like I do have a bug in this, but if I try to set the date, let's say today is 9/11, for example, and I can just change this. If today is 9/11 and it's 8:41 a.m., then it is before 9 a.m., so that's good. And I should be able to take the vacation on the week of 10/8, and it shouldn't give me any problems, and it doesn't. So the date difference is 28. So what it's doing is it's actually going to be calculating 4 weeks from Monday or 4 weeks from the next Monday if you're past 9 a.m. on Tuesday. And this is pretty clever. Let's just say that I want to take vacation on this date, but it was past 9 a.m. So I'm just going to type in 9 for the current time, and it's going to, it should say no, but it's not. Let's see what it looks like in the preview. It looks like I have a bug in this form too. I actually did test this in forms here, so I need to look at this again. I'm probably just not taking into account. Yeah, and this is only going to work in forms here because of the Q-roll stuff. So so it looks like I've got an issue here, but I want to show you how I'm doing this. So basically the way to do this is to add a bunch of fields in your form. So here you can see I've got the start date, the end date, today's date, the start of the week, today's time, and well, now is today's date and time, and then the time portion of that, and whether we're how far we are off from Monday. If we're on Tuesday or Wednesday, that should be 2. If it's Wednesday, if it should be 3 if it's Thursday, and then whether or not it's past 9 a.m. So I add a bunch of fields to my form, and then on submit, what I do is I get the Monday of this week by running the Qrules command. Let me show you this. So the Qrules command is get weekday, and the day is Monday, and the date is today. So that's going to get the Monday of this week, and if we look at the form in the browser again, we'll see that that is correct. That's 9/10/2018, right? And that's the Monday, I believe. It's storing it in say start of the week. So that's correct. And then it's going to get the days from Monday. So to get the days from Monday, you run the Qrules command date diff. The date's today, and then you're going to subtract the start of the week, and the component is days. So let's see if that worked. So the date diff is wrong. So that's why we're having this bug. So let's see here. Now I've also included commands down below here to debug this, and you can see that the commands are succeeding, and it looks like it is 3 there, but then it fails right here. So, and the reason it's failing is probably because we have the bad format here. You can see that right here it's failing as well. So I need to actually change this. There's a bug in my logic because I typed it in wrong. So if I type in 2018-09-11 and hit submit, then it is calculating the number of days correctly. If I try this for today's date, and it should automatically set this to, now it's 3. So now it's working. So it was just a matter of I typed this in automatically and it didn't calculate correctly. But you can see that it is calculating correctly in most cases, unless if I'm manually entering it, it doesn't, but that's not the issue here. So, and then we set the now equal to now, we set the time substring, we set whether or not it's past 9 a.m., and then we add a week to the start if it's past 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So we add a week to the start of the week. And I'm just using the stock function add days to week, add days to day. So it's the start of the week is the date and 7 days. So that's it. Then we just calculate the diff between those 2 days. And if it's greater than 28, then we hide these 2 sections here. Okay. So that's pretty much how you do it. Sometimes it's tricky with these complex dates to get them right, and I recommend just decomposing it into different fields and then calculating them all first before you set your conditions here. So you can see the condition here is just if the diff is greater than 27, we want to hide it. So anything that's within a month is fine. And the same is true here. Anything within a month is fine. We've got a couple other rules in here that are also hiding it if the and these actually, this might be the issue here. These 2 might be the problem because I think that I might have a bug there with those hide shows for the warnings. Anyways, that's the bonus, a little bit of anticlimactic there, but I'll include that and I'll try to fix it first before I send it to you. So that's it. Any more questions for me? Thanks, Alan, for being patient with me and the rest of you here. Thanks for staying on the call. So once again, we are seeing greater adoption with FormZero. We've got quite a few people signed up this week. We're 2 weeks left for the free trial, and then we're going to be asking customers to, we expect a big surge of activity here in the next few weeks because we announced in June that we were doing a 3-month trial for free. We actually had previously just had it wide open. So as of October 1st, you'll need a license. Or if you're just signing up for the first time, you'll get three months for free. So we appreciate you using the product. It is the only sort of extend in place option out there. Unlike other technologies, there is no cost of recreating the forms and Power Apps. There's no cost of migrating data. There's no cost of training people. You're taking your existing investment and you're extending it in place. And we've added new features for mobile. We've added new features for today's web services and lots of custom business needs. And of course, you get us as your support team. So any more questions for me? I want to give a quick shout out. We do have those 2 webinars coming up. I'm about 50-50 on this first one. I'm hoping that we can get it done. It's a whole new webinar, so it's new content again. And then, like I said, on 9/27, week after, we'll do a 3.2 feature review. These dates may end up being push out a week. Just keep that in mind. But we'll send you an email next Tuesday if the webinar is on. So I want to thank you again for being here. And quick, short 4 questions with some humor at the end here. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And let us know if we can help with adding these techniques to your forms. And talk to you soon. Thanks.